Okay, greetings. Welcome to a Twilight of Empire film discussion. And today, amazingly, I can't believe there's just three parts to this, but we are at part three. Hey, Dano, hope you're tucked in with a mug of Ovaltine. Must be starting to get cold there at this point. Good to see you back again. Um, as I was saying, yeah, the 60s ended up having so many films that I liked that it had to go into three parts, and I'm still leaving out a lot because as I kind of peruse through the 60s, I go, oh, yeah, that one, that one, that one. So, as I mentioned in the little blurb that I wrote for this, the 60s was a time when filmmakers really started pushing the boundaries of censorship and started making more or less confrontational and transgressive films. And they were being made on a pretty large scale because movie studios discovered that this is what people wanted to see. So we have a lot of crazy stuff throughout the 60s, and it starts right at 1960 with the movie Psycho. It doesn't start with that, but that's kind of a way that the decade gets kicked off with all kinds of psychological and unconscious references and just playing with the whole medium of the subconscious as it started to rise up and influence art throughout the post-war period and up into the 60s. So today I'm going to be talking about, I've got the last third of the 1960s right here. As you can see, I've already just even added in a few. Um, So just a couple that I forgot to mention, back in the early 60s were the one was The Leopard by Luchino Visconti, the great Italian filmmaker. And it's all about the class system in Sicily, what's happening during the formation of the modern country of Italy. If you haven't seen it, it's a really a beautiful film. There's a great restored version on Blu-ray. I think maybe it's on Criterion, but this is one of those movies that I started to become aware of in the 70s, late 70s, and was only available on terrible VHS copies. Sometimes they were panned and scanned. Sometimes they were just a straight up cropped version, but this is a nice widescreen version. And I'm sure it's on the Criterion channel. It's one of the greatest films made, period, and has Claudia Cardinale and Burt Lancaster and Alan Delon in it. And it's a fantastic film anyway. That's from the early 60s, I think maybe 62 or 63. And then another movie from the early 60s, of course, is the great Cape Fear, which Martin Scorsese would remake about 20 years later. But the original has Robert Mitchum as, I forget the name of the protagonist. He's got a name like Max somebody. Is it Max Cady or something? But anyway, I think his first name Fear. I think the Mitchum's Max Cady. Yes, that's right. So and I think they use the same names in the remake was De Niro, but the later version is kind of more Grand Guignoli than the original one. The original one seems to have a little more menace to it. I mean, De Niro does his own kind of pastiche on the Max Cady character, but I do prefer Mitchum to De Niro. De Niro seems a little bit kind of, you want some eggs to go with that ham, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, it's good. Oh, do you mind getting the air? Thanks. Remake is good, but a little over the top. Yeah, of course. So, and I think Scorsese was doing that on purpose. I mean, of course, everything any of those people do is on purpose. So anyway, the other early 60s film that I had was Cape Fear, and of course it's great. It's I think Donna Reed and Gregory Peck and Mitchum, and just I love the way the film is made, and when they talk about the stuff that Max Cady has done, it's just so awful that it can't even be spoken about. So right away, if you've seen or you know about history or serial killers or whatever, you just imagine the worst. You imagine stuff that's so terrible that it can't be put in a movie. Although those kind of Saw and Hostel movies, those are kind of, and French Extremity or whatever it's called, are kind of going to those places, but somehow stuff that's left in your imagination is unbelievably more awful than things that you can actually see for real. Anyway, we're gonna leave Cape Fear and the Leopard. And
Scott, John, and Ben.
hey, John, how you doing? Good to see you back. Hope you had a good trip. And Ben, good to see you too. Um, and also Vincent, nice to see you guys on this last day of August. Unbelievably, it is fall coming up. So,
The picture is everywhere.
well, the producer wants to know what the temperature is everywhere. And of course, in England, this is like a way of just defaulting to random conversation. So you don't have to say anything real. She's curious though. So I'm not doing another thing until I hear what the temperature is everywhere.
What is that, right?
This is called the Halper method. I don't know if you guys ever watch Useful Idiots with Katie Halper and Aaron Mate, but Katie Halper will do a thing where she'll just sit there and go, nothing's happening until everybody starts liking what we're doing.
It's it's
Okay. Sweaty as hell in Manchester. Okay, Ben, I seem to remember that you were in Manchester. Um, did you go to the Oasis show? I think it was some kind of a homecoming thing. I don't know. I like the other Manchester stuff, but I'm not making an assumption here. Oh, John says Los Angeles is hell hot, as it always is. I mean, even if it's not hot in LA, it's still hell hot. I've read Bukowski. I know what happens there. And also lived there right in the very bowels of Hollywood, just off of Van Ness.
hotter in LA than it is here right now.
Wow, it's hotter in LA. Okay, like 90 plus. Okay. Well, here that's basically let's relax outside weather. But yeah, that is hot for LA, where it's mainly concrete. Um,
Yeah.
no, Oasis are terrible. Yes. Well, I mean, I can't default anybody for, oh, you actually left the country when they're in town. Okay, that's kind of what we do when South by Southwest hits here. We kind of look around for places to camp or whatever. But yeah, actually, in the 90s, there was a running joke between me and a couple of guys that I played in a band with. And the running joke was Britpop is shit pop. And I'll leave it up to you to consider who actually came up with that. I think you'll be able to guess pretty quickly. But yes, I don't think I'll be going to Oasis here, and I'm not sure if I could even name an Oasis song at this point. But how about you, producer? Could you name one?
Top of my head, no.
Not off the top of her head, so I'm in good company.
Angelina's here.
Hey, Angelina, good to see you. Yes, Britpop is shit pop. Hmm. All those bands are a bad version of the Kinks. Yeah, they're kind of a bad version of the Kinks and a really, really weak version of kind of the first couple of years of the Who. when they were still trying to do kind of pop music, if you guys remember that. But their songs were actually good, songs like "The Kids Are All Right" and stuff like that. So, but I digress. So, okay, I think we ended with the last three 1966 um, films that we ended with were Our Man Flint, the great James Coburn spy film. 1 million years BC, probably the earliest and best version of Jurassic Park style stuff. I mean, I'll still take Ray Harryhausen's tabletop dinosaurs running around than uh, what would it be? ILM's dinosaurs. I mean, the original Jurassic Park, okay, whatever. But 1 million years BC just has so much to offer. And then after that, ending up 1966 was Sword of Doom, the great nihilistic samurai film where Tatsuya Nakadai plays a lone samurai who just leaves baskets filled with corpses wherever he walks away from. So if you guys haven't seen Sword of Doom, I recommend that one. Dano says, love the Who. Yeah, I mean, they're a great example of British culture. I'm just going to leave it there. Um, okay, so starting off 1967, I've got a great Japanese film noir, which is a really super cool gangster movie, complete with a gangster who has a fetish about sniffing bowls of freshly cooked rice before he goes about his nefarious tasks in the underworld. And that is an awesome black and white Japanese gangster movie from 1967, Branded to Kill. Once again, I will put a list of these movies. There's somewhat less here. So I realize I diverged so much in the last speaking about all of this stuff that I really could just talk about three movies. And I think I even mentioned that possibly there might have to be a situation returning to the 60s where I pick 15 movies from each year because it was that awesome of a decade. Of course, I'm old. People can argue with me about if it was great or not, but I think at this point, since we're moving on to 60 years ago, more or less it's cast in concrete what is amazing and what is not. And there was an awful lot of amazingness on film in the 60s. So first one, Branded to Kill, once again, the Japanese filmmakers stretching their legs, pushing the limits, and getting into some pretty crazy stuff. Highly recommended from myself. Take a look at it. Might be on the Criterion channel. The Blu-ray that I have is a Criterion one. Okay, 1967, and some of you might have caught the thumbnail that I put in for last week was actually from this next film I'm talking about, which is the film Grand Prix. And it's a racing movie. It's probably one of the first great, absolute, just throwing down the gauntlet. We're making a film about Formula One racing in Europe. We're going to make it in the, I think this film was made in, maybe it took a couple of years to make. It's shot in Cinerama, which was a film process that was invented in the 1950s, I think, to even kind of kick CinemaScope and VistaVision's butt. And it actually does that. I've never seen a real Cinerama film because they are impossible to see at this point. And Cinerama originally was created as a film system that had three individual films running consecutively next to each other, synced up. And there were actually, I think, Cinerama cameras that had 3 rolls of film running in them. So you ended up with this super wide aspect that was kind of like 70 mil twice as wide as 70 millimeter film and bigger. And the person that really kind of invented this is the great Abel Gance, the um, French film director who created the amazing film Napoleon back in the 20s that I mentioned when we did the 1920s thing. And I think most of the versions now, I'm not sure if there has been a remastered version. And if you watch very closely on it, you can kind of see the divisions of the 3 film elements. It's not hyper noticeable. They've done a pretty good job. This is probably one of those movies that needs remastering, I would imagine, and it might even have already been done. I don't know. But this is a great racing film and was actually shot during the Formula One season in maybe 65 and 66. And these seasons of Formula One in the early 60s were considered the most dangerous time in all of automotive racing, Formula automotive racing. And that was because they didn't quite have the safety kinks ironed out. They didn't have um, kind of extensive safety measures dialed in yet. And so people actually died regularly in these kind of races. So when you watch the great title sequence to this film, which incidentally was done by Saul Bass, who made I think he did the title sequences for The Birds and for Psycho and Seconds and a whole bunch of other great stuff. Yes, I think Saul Bass did Vertigo also. But he's like a masterful cinematic and just regular designer. He did the title sequence for Grand Prix, and you should definitely get on the YouTube and take a look at the opening sequence. It's considered one of the great opening sequences in motion picture history. And one of the really great things about it is there's actually these close-ups of the real drivers getting in the real cars to start real races, as well as some intercut things with the actors who obviously were not in the real races. But if you look at the tension on these guys as they're kind of strapping into these cars, that is actual cinema verite. That is at the point where we are watching documentary footage of men who may or may not be killed as they go into these races. So right away, you've got this tension level just in the opening sequence that's quite amazing. These guys are just, sweat is coming down the side of their heads, and they're just basically going, okay, maybe this is, maybe I'm walking out of it, maybe I'm not. I don't know. I think it's called Steely Determination or something like that. But Grand Prix is a great film. It's got all these super cool stars in it. It's got James Garner years and years and years before Rockwell when he was still a movie star. It's got Toshiro Mifune in it as a Japanese businessman. I'm not sure if he drives in the film or not. Um, and he speaks phonetically because he learned to actually mouth all of the English dialogue that he's speaking, like he did in Tora Tora Tora, and also the great movie Cowboy Samurai mashup with Charles Bronson called Red Sun. So Mifune never learned to speak English, but he did learn to speak it phonetically, which is kind of incredible. And he does an admirable job of it. And he's Toshiro Mifune, so I don't care what he's speaking, honestly. So, oh, just a note here, John Schuler says, waiting for the Cinerama to reopen in LA someday. Yes, I've kind of followed that little adventure since the sad closing of Cinerama. And of course, that was one of the original Cinerama domes where you could go and see films like, I think maybe Oklahoma was done in Cinerama, certainly Grand Prix. Um, 2001 A Space Odyssey, I don't think was shot in Cinerama, but it was made so that it could be projected in a Cinerama theater. Um, when I lived in LA in the late 70s, early 80s, Lori Black and I would often go to the Cinerama Dome to see a film. If a great one was playing there, we got to see the first run of Apocalypse Now there, which was quite amazing. That original first version of Apocalypse Now did not have credits on it. The lights went down. It was you were sitting in a totally black cinema. Jungle noises came up while you were still sitting in the black cinema, and then the great kind of jungle opening started. And you had a program to read afterwards, which was super cool too. And the film ended the same way. Um, just went back to the jungle, and it went down, and it was black, and that was really cool. I don't think they even did that at the IMAX for the reissue of it. They didn't do it that way, did they? I don't think they did it that way. Um, and then they actually had like a making of Apocalypse Now before the movie. Talk about spoiler alert. That was the dumbest thing ever. Why did they do that stuff?
Maybe ask what movies they like of the late 60s.
Um, yeah, it was amazing. And actually, Apocalypse Now was the first $5 movie. And I remember Lori and I were going, $5 for a movie? This is, this is unheard of. This will not stand. Um, so you guys got any favorites of the late 60s before I move right along, or 60s in general, or some that I missed? Um, and yeah, I think the Cinerama is probably the lot is going to end up as like a 40-foot condo tower. And I've read some stuff about Tarantino waiting for the right price because he already owns a couple of movie theaters. I used to love to go to the Vista in East LA also, and the Beverly, which I think he also owns. But Quentin, what's up? Throw down for this. You have the money. Planet of the Apes, of course. Yeah, I'm not sure if Beneath the Planet of the Apes that I showed the album for last week was in the 60s, or if that was like 1970 or not. But of course, it has the great soundtrack with the Song of the Holy Bomb on it, which you all should listen to. So, Cool Hand Luke, yes, awesome film, absolutely. Um, and well, there's a bunch. I'm just going to get on with my list. So, after Grand Prix, which you should absolutely see, great John Frankenheimer film. Highly tense through the whole movie because, as I mentioned, it's just men thinking about getting killed and not being able to wait to go do that in a weird way. So, and if you can see it on a big screen, if Beverly or any repertory movie theaters anywhere you guys live um, have suggestion boxes, which they should have, you should all suggest Grand Prix. It seems like maybe something that would show at the British Film Institute, something like that. Maybe a Frankenheimer retrospective. All Frankenheimer's stuff is great. And of course, one of his late films is the amazingly good Island of Dr. Moreau with Brando, Kilmer, and David Thewlis. Bullitt, yes. Okay, Bullitt. absolutely amazing film. Also is Thomas Crown Affair in the 60s with Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway. Um, but yes, those are, yeah, Bullitt is awesome. Also, Bullitt has a legendary soundtrack by Lalo Schifrin, who also did the Dirty Harry movies, a couple of the early ones, and a bunch of other stuff. And I did get to meet Lalo Schifrin once, which was an awesome experience and a genuinely great experience.
Okay.
68. Okay.
Cool. And Luke.
Cool Hand Luke. Yes. What we have here is a failure to communicate. One of the great movie lines of all time, right? Next in 1967, I have Reflections in a Golden Eye. Now, I spoke a little bit about this last week. I think Angeline mentioned that one. But that's a great movie. Marlon Brando, once again, just doing completely nutty stuff. Elizabeth Taylor walking around in a riding outfit with a riding crop, um, doing a lot of mean stuff, making a lot of threatening faces, and being generally the boss of pretty much anybody's in front who's in front of her, including Marlon Brando, who is quite the torn man. I'm just going to leave it there. So this is another one of those psychologically infused movies with Freudian aspects jumping to the fore of it. It's directed by the great John Huston, who also previously did a really weird thing with color timing in movies with his version of Moby Dick in the 50s, which is an awesome, awesome film. And he color timed the film so that they looked like watercolored engravings from the 19th century, early 19th century, of seafaring scenes and whale hunting. And so the whole film is desaturated so that it looks like those kind of engravings. And it's an amazing effect. Um, Incredibly, all 135 chapters of Moby Dick are scrunched down into a movie that's like an hour and 45 minutes or something. And it's got awesome, awesome stuff in it. It's got Gregory Peck as Captain Ahab. It has Richard Basehart as Ishmael. And it also has the great Orson Welles as Father, God, what is his name? Father Mapplethorpe? Maybe that's his name, Father Mapplethorpe, who gives this incredible sermon in a church. And the sermon where he preaches the sermon from is like a pulpit that is shaped like the bow of a ship. So this is an awesome, awesome film. This is going back to the 50s, however, but John Huston made that film. And then he also did a really weird color timing thing for Reflections in a Golden Eye. And when it first came out, the entire film is tinted golden, just so we weren't thinking, okay, Reflections in a Golden Eye, is this metaphorical? What does golden actually mean? Are we having like a Midas influenced take on this sort of Freudian Oedipal story here? No, we're just having everything tinted yellow the entire movie. So I think maybe we've even seen I think we saw the yellow version, which at this point is kind of pink now, I think a little bit. So,
Instead, it only lasted like a week in the theater, and
Oh.
they changed.
yeah, because it only lasted a week in the theater being yellow, because everybody was going, this, it's yellow. John Huston was just like, I don't care.
Says modern releases, you can get either one. You can get
Yeah, modern releases, you can get either one. I think the copy that I have has 2 discs. So if you're watching the regular one and you're just missing the yellow, you can go back to the other one if you want. So, Spider Baby, yes, I think we mentioned Spider Baby before, um, which of course is a great, for those of you out there who know the classic, Channel 4 comedy Father Ted, about a couple of priests that get sentenced to live on an island for their transgressions. And I think Spider Baby is maybe even right in the very first episode of Father Ted, where a rundown carnival comes to town, and Father Dougal McGuire is trying to convince Father Ted to go to the local carnival. And Ted is going, well, what's so great about the carnival or the fair, the fun fair? And Father Dougal McGuire says, well, they have a spider baby down there. So that's just shows you the level that the writers were operating on. But Spider Baby, yes, awesome. Ben says, whatever happened to Baby Jane? Yes, I think I had that. That's a 1962 movie. So we did have, if you want to go back and visit part one, which is up in the live streaming playlist on the channel here, you can hear what I had to say about whatever happened to Baby Jane. So that is, without question, one of the great films of the 1960s and has an unusual double-barreled female lead, which didn't often happen in the 60s, of Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, both who are obviously legends, and fantastic movie. I think it's Robert Aldrich, fantastic filmmaker, great director. He didn't make a bad film ever. We're going to talk about one of his other movies coming up here. So, yep, Reflections in a Golden Eye. Once again, large movie company doing something more or less avant-garde under the direction of one of their great money makers, John Huston. And who was going to tell John Huston at a movie studio company, well, we don't think that's a good idea? Nobody was ever saying that to John Huston, ever. So next we have in 1967 actually a sequel, which is called In Like Flint, and that is the sequel to the Man Flint film, which, from what I understand, James Coburn did as kind of like a ruse. He was like, okay, the Bond movies are big, and this seems like kind of a cool, fun thing to do, and it's got people like Lee J. Cobb in it, and so he got in that, and then it was, to surprise of everybody, a success, and so they decided to make a sequel, and it runs pretty much along the same lines. Doesn't take itself too seriously. It's very pop culture influenced. All the colors are super bright and pastel. The hemlines are very short. Music is very groovy. Amazing title sequences, cinematography, and acting. And James Coburn was actually the boyfriend of a neighbor of mine when I lived in London. This is a true story. He wasn't her boyfriend at the time, but she told me this story. My then wife and I became friends with her because she was a neighbor. So as we got to know her, she would just come out with these kind of odd stories here and there that would kind of pop out related to something we might be talking about or whatever. So um, she might have even mentioned that there was going to be a film on television that we might take a look at with a James Coburn in it. And in the course of a conversation, I can't remember what the film was, because of course James Coburn made a million films. Um, but she said, I said, "Oh yeah, I like that movie. I've seen that movie or whatever," and it might have even been um, what would it have been in the 60s? It might have been Magnificent Seven or one of the other films he made, but she said, "Oh, well, Jimmy and I were an item at one point." And I went, "Jimmy?" And she goes, "Oh, Jimmy Coburn." And I went, "Really? The James Coburn?" She goes, "Oh, yeah, we had a on again, off again thing for about a year and a half or whatever." And I was quite astounded to hear this. I was just going, "Wow, this you just." She was already kind of a pop star in the UK. Her name was Lindsay DePaul, kind of a fluffy sort of pop star, very good time feel stuff. Never really wrote anything herself, but was definitely a chart success. Was known on television in London, in England in the 70s. And one of the things that she told me about James Coburn was that he loved to walk around the house naked, and he also had a taste for the marijuana and enjoyed smoking that tremendously. And if he could ever catch a moment where he could relax and do that, he did that quite a bit. So that just kind of raises him up in my estimation even more and just makes him even a cooler guy. So, In Like Flint is the sequel to Our Man Flint. And if you want a really cool double feature night of fun, those are two cool things to watch right in a row. Let's see. Fearless Orchestra says Moby Dick is on Prime. I'm going to watch it tonight. Thanks. Awesome film. It's great. And one of those movies that kind of disappeared for a really long time, was not really well served on VHS or Betamax. Didn't get every once in a while it would get replayed on TV in the 70s and 80s. I tried to catch it. I think it was kind of a truncated version because it might have been, maybe it's even a 2-hour movie. I'm not sure. But now there are great versions, restored versions to see. Father Ted is brilliant. Yes. No, no, these cows are small. Those are far away. I know a million Father Ted lines. So anyway, and there's a great book that you can get with all of the scripts in it, and I can just look at that forever. So it's great. Um, Vincent says Secret Ceremony with Liz Taylor, Mitchum, and Mia Farrow, offbeat bit of intrigue. Oh, okay, I'll watch that. I mean, that sounds great. It's like those movies like Night of the Iguana. I think really Liz Taylor, I mean, of course, she's great and all that Tennessee Williams stuff, but I think there's something about 60s Liz Taylor, like after she's been through the mill with Burton and has kind of come out the other side of some of that stuff, where she's just really, really good. Obviously, whatever happened to Virginia Woolf, I think that's a 60s movie, but I don't have that on my list. So that's one I didn't see. I mean, I forget these things, but yeah, whatever happened to Virginia Woolf is a great one. And the producer and I play our little version of that occasionally just for fun. Not quite as intensely or as nearly as antagonistically, but strictly just for fun. Um, which part?
There's lots of crazy parts.
Yeah, lots of yeah, actually, if you want a night of that's like another kind of fun, but um, I think Whatever Happened to Virginia Woolf could also be a kind of demented drinking game if you want to go there. You can make your own rules, but if you want to play along with the characters, yeah, I mean, I think that could be a thing. Um, okay, 1967. This is a film that requires little or no explanation or discussion, really. It might, if you guys want to discuss it a little bit, but Planet of the Apes. And yeah, I mean, what can we even say about Planet of the Apes? Uh, written by Rod Serling. A lot of you might not know it's written by Rod Serling, but it is. He wrote the screenplay, and the original is written by a French guy called Pierre Boulle, I think is his name, Boulle. And it's quite possible that he might have also come up with the original story for Eyes Without a Face. Now, don't quote me on that, but it seems a little familiar. Um, anyway, Planet of the Apes, I mean, awesome, a film that really, really holds up. One of the great Heston performances ever, part of his excellent sci-fi trilogy, that and Omega Man and Soylent Green. Really, I think Soylent Green might possibly be my favorite out of those, but Planet of the Apes is really awesome too. Incidentally, I was just watching In the Mouth of Madness, John Carpenter, and guess who shows up in it? Heston. So Heston's all over the place. He's great. He's amazing, and always seemed to show up at the right time. And so Planet of the Apes is great. When I first found out about this movie, I was living in Germany, and I saw these Planet of the Apes trading cards in some kind in the PX, I think. And I remember just looking at it going, what the hell is a Planet of the Apes? This is crazy. And I wanted to buy the cards, and I couldn't really figure out what was happening with them because there are photographs from the movie. And I kind of put it together that there was a movie called Planet of the Apes. I was very excited about this. I was probably 10 at the time. And I don't think Planet of the Apes came to the movie theater on the Army base, because otherwise we probably would have gone to see it. And I never actually got to see it until it started to be on TV in the 70s. And of course, that's like a chopped up version, and probably not even a pan and scan version, just a here it is, it's 133 version. So another great thing about the Planet of the Apes is the score. The soundtrack is amazing. It's Jerry Goldsmith. Um, as a huge fan of movie scores, this score is one of the ones that's up in the top 10, absolutely. And of course, Goldsmith is amazing. He did the score for Seconds, which we discussed last week, I think, with Rock Hudson, directed by Frankenheimer. And
Scan is.
yeah, do you all know what pan and scan is? I mean, these days you're probably not even gonna see that what happened to films in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, pan and scan. If you guys don't know what that is and you'd like to hear about what it is from me, ask me and I will return to that subject. Um,
Documentary about it. I think maybe Martin Scorsese. It's
yeah, I think there's a few documentaries about panning and scanning, but or just cropping, you know, like the other two thirds of your film don't matter, filmmakers that you've killed yourselves overachieving. You get this.
sure.
So it'd be the equivalent of doing this basically in the middle of your favorite movie. So that's what it would be the equivalent of doing that. Yeah, pan and scan. Maybe we could bring it back. You know, maybe we could start a movement like we want pan and scan. How dare you destroy our legacy of watching films in the
Explain it. Faceless Orchestra said to explain it.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna let you know about pan and scan. Okay, so television originally, well, let's go back to the early days of film. So film originally was a format 143 or 133, I think. It's called Academy ratio. It's basically a square. And that's because that's what there wasn't matting back then. There wasn't matting is basically cutting off parts of the film to make the illusion appear that it's actually widescreen. Anyway, all the movies that were made in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s that you're used to seeing on your screen now that are shaped like a rectangle to fit onto television in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s even, they would do this thing called panning and scanning. I think originally there wasn't even panning and scanning. Originally, they just chopped off 2/3 of the film. So instead of seeing all the stuff going on over here and all the stuff that was going on over here when you go to a big movie theater or you watch a widescreen film on your enormous TVs now, you just saw this much. So if you go back and find, well, you can find these versions on.
Graduate as an example, like when she's taking off her stocking,
Oh, really?
they're not showing both people in the scene.
Right. So yeah, John's correct that they do the same thing to old things that are Academy ratio, and they ruin that by just stretching it out. Or what they'll do in some cases even is they'll take the whole thing, they'll make it widescreen, they'll chop it. So panning and scanning was literally when they were scanning the film, and they did this all the way up into the DVD era, before widescreen televisions existed. Um, and they would just focus on the important parts of what was happening. So they just, if you buy like old versions of movies like Close Encounters, anything from the 70s, certainly movies like ones that we've been talking about, like Sword of Doom, Reflections in a Golden Eye, Planet of the Apes, any of these previous ones. I mean, Andrei Rublev, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, um, Blow Up, Dr. Zhivago, Lawrence of Arabia, all of these movies, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s were just. So if you guys are ever in thrift shops, just for a laugh, like Goodwill or whatever, Salvation Army, look in the DVD section because there's going to be a million of them there. Some DVDs are obviously good to own because, I mean, you never know. Physical media is good to own because just because you buy a movie like on Amazon doesn't mean it's going to be there 6 months from now because the licenses run out. The movie's not available. The movie you bought is no longer there. So this is a thing that's happening. But anyway, just for fun, look in some of the thrift stores and you might see like a version of Lawrence of Arabia, and it'll say formatted to fit your television set. And it will be. So if you really wanted to go old school, you'd get an old DVD player and you plug it into your Sony Trinitron, which amazingly actually had really, really good pictures. I mean, they were the amazing TVs. Um, Anyway, I'm digressing, but John says that they wreck old TV shows by changing the ratio to fill widescreen TVs. Some of them are doing it. They are kind of considered Philistines at this point. And a lot of the old TV shows, since they were actually shot on film, are looking really amazing now. I mean, they're looking way better than they ever did when they aired or in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. For example, Twilight Zones, Outer Limits, they look incredible now. You can just buy the Blu-ray, get the whole set, and they will make your brain explode how good they look. Um, you can literally see, oh, there's like a hair on somebody's jacket or something. I mean, it's on that level of being great now. So that's pan and scan in a nutshell. It was a horrible practice. Um, yeah, 4K all in the family. Yeah, that's probably not gonna look quite so good since it was shot on video. So all the stuff that was shot on video, unfortunately, is gonna be this is what you get because video was not HD at that point. So probably Blu-ray might be okay. Blu-ray's been okay for Monty Python, but once again, they had a combination of real film. They were shooting with 16 mil, maybe 35 even at some point, and a combination of video. So the video is kind of sealed into the resolution that it was in camera at, which is not very high. It's like the maximum might be like, what is it? It's like half of 1080 or something. So, but yeah, I mean, if they can sell it and somebody will buy it, they will sell 4K videos of things like, what else is it going to be? I don't know. What we need is like Fantasy Island because that stuff was shot on film. It looks amazing. So Fantasy Island in 4K. Okay, you won't get an argument from me over that. Next, 1967, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Sergio Leone learning from every previous Western he's made to make this epic, summing up almost of the Man with No Name trilogy. And well, this is considered part of that. This is considered like the last part, the with No Name trilogy. Lee Von Cleef, Eli Wallach, and Clint Eastwood. Music done by Ennio Morricone, and absolutely awesome. Speaking of 4K, yes, this is one that you should get. And it looks amazing if you've only ever seen it on streaming or on DVD or VHS or whatever, or on TV. This absolutely ticks every box. And when it goes to being for sale forever, you'll have your version. And yeah, of course, this is a very iconic movie score. Absolutely great. A movie you can just throw on and watch 20 minutes of and go, wow, they really do not make them like this anymore. And they really didn't make them like this ever. This was just Sergio Leone's vision, basically an Italian who did not speak English, who had never been to the US at that point, I don't think, just throwing his idea of what cowboy stuff is out there and doing an amazing job of it. Um, Michael Wood says, praise Satan. Well, it's an option. Um, let's see. Okay, I'm not going to be divergent because I am actually reading Paradise Lost by John Milton. But yeah, it's all about Satan's revolt in heaven. It's considered the greatest poem ever written. Um, if none of you out there have ever read Paradise Lost, and I think you can probably get this for free if you have a Kindle, obviously written in the 1600s. I think it's public domain at this point, but Satan's sermon, which takes up like 100 pages, is very convincing and interesting and worth reading. So yeah, in a sense, I'll agree with you. Um, let's see. Shout out to John Milton. Okay. Next, 1967 also has, wow, 67 has an amazing stack of movies. 67, Dr. Dolittle. So this is the original Dr. Dolittle. It's the one with Rex Harrison, shot in uh, Super Panavision, shot in 70 millimeter, was a complete, absolute box office bomb. I remember seeing this movie more or less when it came out in London. I think I might have seen it like at one of the giant cinemas in Leicester Square, and probably was maybe 10 or 11 years old, I think, maybe even 9 years old. And I really love this movie. It has the great Anthony Newley in it, who also co-wrote the songs in it. This was not a movie that was a musical on a stage before it became a film, like Oklahoma and a lot of other movies, My Fair Lady. These songs were written expressly for the film. Incidentally, Anthony Newley played the Artful Dodger as a child in the great David Lean version of Oliver and Oliver Twist, that is, which is not a musical. So some of these songs have stayed with me my whole life, and there's one song uh, in particular that is a really, really great song, and it's kind of considered a standard in some circles, which is "When I Look in Your Eyes," and I think Dr. Dolittle sings it to a seal, if I remember. But this is a really cool, very surreal movie shot with the highest production values. It also has the great Samantha Eggar in it, who would later go on to be a great British actor. And she would later go on to be in one of Cronenberg's greatest films, The Brood, with Oliver Reed. So if you guys don't know The Brood by Cronenberg, you got to check that out. Actually, watch Dr. Dolittle and then watch The Brood for a great double feature with Samantha Eggers. And oh, Anthony Newley, also just on a side note, huge, huge influence on David Bowie. So listen to some Anthony Newley tunes and then listen to some early David Bowie. You may hear some direct influence there. Next, 1967, Playtime by the great Jacques Tati. And Jacques Tati, uh, incredible French comedian, made the movie Mon Oncle, created this version, this character called Monsieur Hulot, who basically was a French everyman, and his movies were more or less silent. There wasn't any dialogue from Jacques Tati, just dialogue from everybody else, while Jacques Tati attempts to analyze everything that's going on around him, which is completely insane. All the stuff that's going on around him is completely mad, and he's more or less creating everything by his misinterpretation, his misreading of everything that's going on. So Tati is more or less a character who can be perceived as somebody who's on the spectrum in a certain way. And Playtime is kind of his piece de resistance. And this is, I think, the first movie he shot in color. And I believe it's also shot in 70 millimeter. So the resolution on it is crazy. There's a great Criterion reissue of this that you can get. And all of these movies are really wonderful to see now, especially if, like me, since the 70s, you were just watching just terrible versions, pan and scan versions, um, and also cropped versions of movies like Mon Oncle, Monsieur Hulot's Holiday, and Playtime. It's fantastic to see these films uh, restored beautifully. And if Playtime ever comes to a movie theater near you, get down there and see it, because this is one of those movies that you need to see on the biggest screen available. Um, oh, Samantha Hubba Hubba. She speaks for herself. Um, let's see. Next, 1967. Also, kind of a teenage crush of mine, Catherine Deneuve, in the great Louis Brunel film Belle de Jour. This is a spectacular French film, wonderful Louis Brunel film, the great French Spanish filmmaker who we spoke about way back in our films of the 20s when he was making films with Salvador Dali. So this film is fantastic. And basically, Catherine Deneuve is a bored housewife left alone to her own devices and just decides to try on prostitution, see how that works out for her. and she finds that she actually has like a certain talent for it. And I'm just going to leave that film there. But if uh, none of you have seen Belle de Jour, which is kind of a play on, if you've ever been to French restaurants or been to France, there's soup de jour, which is basically the soup of the day. Well, she becomes the Belle de Jour, which is basically the lady of the day in the house of delights that she works in Paris. So, de la Dia, Bella de Dia in Spanish. That makes sense. Absolutely. I'm sure it's got a name. It's got its own individual name for every language that it's been shown in or was allowed to be shown in, because this was a scandalous film. But of course, Catherine Deneuve by this point had made the amazing film Repulsion with Polanski. So once again, that could be an awesome double feature, Repulsion and Belle de Jour. Anyway, next, taking a rather big left turn into populist filmmaking, a good old film from the good old USA that has a lot of my favorite male stars in it, and that is The Dirty Dozen. And The Dirty Dozen, for those of you who don't know, came out in 1967. It has, I mean, it's just a great, like, kind of biggest hits of older male film stars in the 1960s. It's got Lee Marvin. It's got uh, Telly Savalas. It has Charles Bronson. It's got Jim Brown. And who else is in it? Ernest Borgnine's in it. Um, I'm leaving some people out because it's just jam packed with. It's one of those ones with movie star, movie star, movie star, movie star, movie star, movie star. I think this is also a Robert Aldrich film, and it's basically one of those movies, wartime movies that got made in the 50s and 60s, which are kind of like suicide mission movies. Who's going to go on it? And basically, they pick the worst of the worst. I think it's all men who are on death row. And basically, it's just kind of the beginning of the film is great. It has Lee Marvin visiting the worst people in the military, basically just rapists, murderers, insane people. And he goes to eat. The movie starts with him showing up in a Jeep and going to visit the worst of the worst. So this is a really cool way to start the movie. Um, really, the movie Inglorious Bastards by Tarantino is more or less a remake of this. Once again, showing Tarantino's, let's just say, penchant for homage, which he does very well, but doesn't really hold a candle to The Dirty Dozen, which is kind of one of my favorite movies ever. And one of those movies that whenever I was a kid, or when we finally got TV, because the whole time we were living in Germany, we did not have a television. When we finally got one, I was all over watching those kind of movies. And they weren't so complex that you couldn't understand them as kind of a older child or young teenager. But watching them later through my entire life, I realized, oh, there's all this kind of, stuff going on in it that's really meant for adult audiences. So these were cool movies that kind of could watch as an older kid and go, whoa, this is great. They're doing this amazing thing. And then as you get older, you go, yeah, they're doing this thing. And it's got it's got undernotes to it that are, um, yeah, odd and strange. And these were adults making these movies. So they knew what they were doing. And also it's got Ernest Borgnine in it. So, yeah, I mean, really, I could have just avoided saying all that stuff I said about it and just said, "It has Ernest Borgnine in it," and then just moved to the next movie, which is, and I don't know if you guys will know this movie because it's kind of another, well, Dirty Dozen is not a left field movie, but this one kind of is, and it comes out of British counterculture in 1967, and it's called Bedazzled, made by the great Stanley Donen, who made Singing in the Rain, incredibly, and then made this movie, not directly afterwards, but more or less a little bit later. And that movie, Bedazzled, has the great comedy team Peter Cook and Dudley Moore in it. And they had, I don't think they were part of they were kind of a later comedy team in the 60s. Her comedy was extremely British in nature, and Dudley Moore was also a great musician, which probably a lot of you don't know about. And basically, this is a remake of the Faust story. And Dudley Cook is a guy who works in a wimpy bar in London, which is basically England's first attempt at creating a McDonald's type restaurant. And he falls in love with a waitress. Yes, they had waitresses. I actually went to wimpy bars in the 70s. They were hideous. They were like the worst place you could eat, but it was kind of a thing where they were going, well, maybe we can have slice of America without having to go to America. Anyway, Dudley Moore is basically falls in love with this actor, Eleanor Braun, and is just kind of going, I'll do anything to be able to get with her, anything, anything. And so up jumps the devil, and the devil is Peter Cook, who plays a great devil. He is a perfect and magnificent devil, and he just offers to basically get this girl for Dudley Moore. And all Dudley Moore has to do is sign his soul away, which he does. And so at every single instance, the devil is sabotaging things that things that Dudley Moore is wishing for. So I'm not going to tell you what all of those are, but this is a really, really great film. There was an absolutely horrible version of it remade, maybe like in the year 2000 or something. And I think it had Hugh Grant and Elizabeth Hurley, maybe. Horrible, horrible, pointless, awful remake. I couldn't watch it. I tried to watch it, I think. And I tried to watch it when maybe somebody had a video of it or something. And yeah, it's terrible. Anyway, this 1967 version is awesome, really captures the essence of swinging 60s London in a way. And I'm not sure if, I think maybe the score is by Andre Previn, amazing musician, composer. And I think Dudley Moore contributed to the version of that. So if you don't know anything about Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, go listen to some of their routines. Those are probably definitely on YouTube. And I did actually see a great conversation with Peter Cook and Dudley Moore on Dick Cavett that was more or less in the ballpark of when they made this. So next, 1967, Morley Marvin, Point Blank, made by the great English director John Borman, who also made the aforementioned Zardoz and also made Deliverance. So between those three movies, I mean, these are some of the greatest films made. I love John Borman, outstanding filmmaker. Also, obviously, Lee Marvin, I mean, never bad in a movie. But if you haven't seen Point Blank, another great, this is one of those movies that they panned and scanned because it's got a great widescreen CinemaScope aspect ratio to it They panned and scanned it, they chopped it, they made it horrible for VHS, for DVD, but now you can watch it like it was supposed to be watched. Highly existential. Lee Marvin is awesome. Um, Angie Dickinson is awesome. So this is a uh, great film. You got to watch Point Blank.
We need to do a part 4 already.
You need to do a part 4.
Can you blast it?
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna have to do a part 4 of this because, well, I've done half of them. So let me see what's next. I'll do 2 more. I'm gonna do 2 more because, sorry, I've been so divergent with this, but, I'll put up the list that I've made for today, and you guys can go and look at the list. I'll get that up in a little bit. Yeah, it's gonna have to be part 4, you know? So I'll do 2 more. Um, so 1967, The Young Girls of Rochefort, which is a really cool film by Jacques Demy, who also made The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Now, both of these films are films that are really music heavy, and they're basically experiments in seeing, can we make a film where everybody sings all of the dialogue? And Umbrellas of Cherbourg is like this. Um, Young Girls of Rochefort is not exactly like this, but is very song and dance heavy. These are great widescreen films, both of these films. And if you can see them playing at a movie theater, you have to go and see them because this is spectacular filmmaking. It's for the whole family. For those of you that have kids, you can see any of these films without fear that something weird's going to come up that you have to explain to your children. So I recommend these films absolutely. Um, and beautiful pastel colors, and of course, Umbrellas of Cherbourg and both Young Girls of Rochefort have the great Catherine Deneuve in them. So if you like Catherine Deneuve, you got to watch them. Okay, this will be the last one that I do for this week, which is Once Upon a Time in the West. And this is yet another magnificent Sergio Leone film. Probably my favorite of his films, and the most kind of um, really cinematic, transgressive film, I would say, from the 1960s, put out by a major studio. And I'm not going to tell you what that transgression is. I'll leave it to you if you've never seen it. But it's quite stunning. And I think it made people's brains explode when it came out. People like the great critic Pauline Kael for the New York Times were just going, "What is going on? What's happening? What are filmmakers doing?" They're kind of was seen as one of the benchmarks of the slide towards just society falling apart. Like this is, and it's really still considered definitely subversive cinema. Now a lot of people are just, yeah, Once Upon a Time in the West or whatever. But really, within the first 10 minutes of this movie, we have something that is still really taboo in film today. And if you guys can come up with like some examples, um, you can think about them and come up with them for next week. But yeah, it's great. It's got Henry Fonda, Charles Bronson. Um, I can't remember some of the other people in it. Claudia Cardinale is in it. Incredible cinematography, great Ennio Morricone score. Again, magnificent film to see at the cinema. If you can see it, you got to go see it there. So this is a really great great Sergio Leone film and just a great film in general. I'm not sure if he went back to the West after this. Maybe this is his final Western, but I mean, what a great film to go out on. I mean, it's absolutely incredible and just wonderful to see. Score is incredible, cinematography is incredible, direction, all of that stuff. Charles Bronson, um, really, really good. The opening sequence is considered one of the greatest opening sequences in all of film. And there is a 4K version of this. And if you guys are doing that, you got to do this. So um, that's all I'm going to do for this week because we're yet again at like an hour and 15 minutes. Michael says the Brood is awesome. Yes, it is. And thank you guys for being here. I really enjoy doing this stuff with you, and I love hearing your recommendations. I know we're back at the point, still incredibly, of movies that are coming from like 60 years ago now. 1965 was 60 years ago, amazingly. But all of this stuff has not really aged because we're at the point where the auteurs have taken control of production houses and or really it's the opposite. Producers at the production houses, the big movie studios, are kind of going, wow, these guys have ideas that we can't even get close to, so we just got to let them run, and we're not going to cry if they make money. So this is a really, really cool era of cinema expanding, and the people who were able to be successful were pushing the limits, and that was a super cool thing. And the producers at the time were smart enough to just go, okay, let's do this. So, and that continued on into the 70s, really, and even the 80s to an extent. So, this is really a very golden age for cinema, even to the point of making your whole film golden colored. So, thank you guys for being here, and I appreciate all of you. And once again, you can check out my Patreon page. I'm doing some pretty cool stuff over there. Unreleased stuff, writing about this music here, doing a lot of stuff of my own. And also, you can buy me a coffee. You can also send thanks and love through like buying jewels or super chats if you want to ask me a very specific question that I might not be talking about, anything related to music or whatever. That's an option also. All the links are going to be below eventually. So check back tomorrow when I can manage to get the links up. Hope you guys have a great Labor Day or bank holiday weekend, as they call them. Were they always bank holiday weekends aligned with Labor Day, or were they something else? I can't actually remember. It seems that they've been curiously synced up, which is a little mysterious to me.
It just shifts around. Like it's always on a Monday.
It shifts around. It's always on a Monday, but it has to be in league, if you will. So do your research on exactly what bank holiday Mondays are. Oh, you had your bank holiday last Monday. Ah, so you're still a sovereign nation. Good. Or is the bank or the Channel Islands different? Anyway, thank you guys. Signing off. Love all of you and appreciate you. See you later.